Right, so the first part of this afternoon was more around automating the home and getting it kind of professional in where it's probably become more in-depth, more detailed, a lot more tech, and you kind of really need to know how to join it all together. One of the other things we've been interested in looking at is that the kind of smaller home smart tech bits and pieces that you can kind of pick up at Argos or the supermarket or DIY stalls, kind of doorbells, sensors, Alexas, Google Homes, things like that, that potentially a handy person could fit. So we're interested in finding out, A, whether a handy person has the skills to supply and fit them, to be able to instruct a potential end user on how to use them, how useful that kind of end user would find the kit, and then how much ongoing support they would need to kind of maintain and use it. Because obviously, if the person's having to go back every other week to reset it or something, it soon becomes quite an expensive venture. So 2 or 3 years ago, we kicked off a pilot with the support of Taylor Wimpey and involving Leeds Beckett University as well. And really pleased now to have the findings. So I'm going to bring Yasmeen onto the stage.
Hi, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody.
There we go. Afternoon, Yas. So Yasmeen's one of our regional advisors at Foundations, and she's been working with Leeds Beckett and with Middlesbrough and Yorkshire Housing to follow through on this report. So I'll hand over to Yas to outline what we found.
Fantastic. Thank you, Paul, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's Foundations Live. As Paul just mentioned, in this presentation, I'll be taking you through the handyperson assistive tech or home automations pilot that we're very excited to launch today. So we'll be looking at the findings from the baseline study, and as Paul mentioned, this explored the skills needed by handypersons to install smart home devices, and also the early impacts of technology like this on older and vulnerable people. So the pilot was funded by Taylor Wimpey with the research carried out by Leeds Beckett for Foundations, and the baseline study had 2 clear objectives. Firstly, we wanted to examine the skills needed and the training required by handypersons to install and support smart devices. And secondly, we wanted to understand users' engagement with technology and any changes to the quality of life and well-being that they might experience as a result of engaging with these products. So why did it focus on this? Well, for some context, we know that 85% of older people want to stay at home if their homes are suitably adapted. And given our growing aging population, there's clearly increased demand for accessible and smart housing. This is supported by the Disabled Facilities Grant Guidance, which recommends integrating smart tech into home adaptations to support vulnerable people in innovative ways, which is something that we always encourage at Foundations. So consequently, the pilot aimed to support this objective, and it was delivered across 50 homes in North Yorkshire and Middlesbrough, and it focused on the practical delivery of local handyperson services. Regarding the methodology, so to evaluate both the handyperson services and the user experiences, surveys were used both before and after the installation of smart tech, and baseline indicators were developed, and this helped to track skills and user impact over time. In terms of the participants involved, the pilot engaged older and disabled people as well as their carers and their family members, and this enabled us to capture a broader and holistic impact of the smart home devices. And in terms of the actual smart home products used, this was mainstream, low-level consumer everyday tech, so things like Alexa and Google Hubs, smart plugs, electric blinds and curtains, and Ring doorbells. So objective 1, which was all around skills and training. The study basically demonstrated that installers need both technical and people skills if they are working to support vulnerable people in their homes. So whilst the wiring and the network knowledge is clearly essential to be able to deliver these types of services, so too are the soft skills. These are skills around things like communication, patience, and negotiation, things that are especially important in the world of assistive tech and smart home devices. So the training areas identified some needs for moving forward. So firstly, this was obviously the technical skills in relation to device integration, connectivity, and troubleshooting. We also thought that there would be a good recommendation here around the regulatory skills, so ensuring compliance with building and electrical regulations, and then, of course, the soft skills, so explaining setup in plain language and supporting users with low digital confidence. Installers also flagged some common issues that they encountered throughout the pilot, so to inform future developments for the long-term integration of assistive technology into home adaptations. And this included technical issues and device compatibility, as well as users' reluctance or resistance to change, operational limitations, and hidden costs with things like subscriptions. So consequently, it's unsurprising that the installers preferred face-to-face training to gain that practical hands-on experience and really engage in those skills. But it was also found that a blended option, so a combination of both face-to-face and online, can offer that really positive flexibility to ensure that trainers have all the skills that they need. So this provides us with a really good idea of what we would need for a broader rollout of assistive technology in the home. So objective 2, this was the second objective of the study, and this was all about users' digital engagement. Encouragingly, we saw a rise in smart tech experience after the pilot, so clearly expanding the pool of people that smart tech has the potential to assist. And while some did remain hesitant, overall, over half of the users, so 56%, were open to adopting new technologies early on or as they become more mainstream. So again, a very positive indication here. Specifically, smart devices mark positive impact, especially in terms of assisting organisation and routine and supporting safety and reassurance for carers, both of which are desirable when supporting vulnerable people in their homes and demonstrate the ability that smart tech has when used consistently and appropriately to offer that structure and support. There were some challenges, and this was around Wi-Fi connectivity and device and app complexity, but this suggests a need for broader support and a broader supportive environment around smart tech to enhance its effectiveness. And as you can see here, it generally had some very positive impacts on those who participated. So, for example, people reported feeling more secure in their homes with improved mental and physical well-being and more confident as a result of engaging with these smart devices. In relation to managing emergencies, the number of those who would previously have responded by shouting for their neighbours for help decreased significantly, again highlighting a more dignified and consistent approach to supporting people within their homes. Finally, there was some notable mixed or negative impacts, and this included a decline in physical activity and socialising outside of the home. So, in summary, then, and this report is now available for you to access on our website, the study showed that smart devices show a real potential to improve lives, but without connectivity, ongoing support, and trained installers, the benefits might be limited. The baseline gave us really valuable insight into what works and what still needs addressing, so we've got some recommendations on this slide for moving forward. First of all, we'd recommend investing in blended handyperson training for installers, mixing both online and in-person formats to ensure that technical, regulatory, and soft skills can be developed. Secondly, we would recommend co-producing solutions with older and disabled users, as their experiences with these types of technology and devices will ultimately dictate the success of smart tech in this context. And we would recommend addressing the digital divide and broadband barriers, as the pilot demonstrated that these were some of the key limitations to the integration of smart tech in the home. Another recommendation was to expand the pilot to assess long-term impact. So the impact of this study was promising, but it was modest. So we would advise and recommend for further work to be done in this area. And finally, a recommendation here is around building smart tech into disabled facilities grant assessments and home improvement agency services. So We know that the DFG guidance supports capital equipment like routers, extenders, and initial setup, so there is a potential here for the Disabled Facilities Grant to include funding for digital infrastructure, but there's obvious limitations in that the DFG can't support ongoing costs in this aspect. So ultimately, the findings suggest that assistive technology supports independent living and enhances safety, but sustained investment is needed. Sustained investment in skills, support, and connectivity is required to maximise long-term impact and scale this research. Furthermore, we know that this was everyday consumer tech like Alexas, which is a great starting point. The study didn't go into the high-level tech, as we've heard about more of this afternoon. So we know for fully integrated smart home systems that CDR are our go-to. And I will just finish this presentation by saying a huge thank you to everybody who was involved in the pilot. And I very much encourage you to check out the report and the new home automations guide on our website. Thank you very much, everybody.